the end, he chose the legal path. Instead of the pockets of violence that have attended the rejection of the results by his party in the period after the election.
I used to have enormous respect for Nana Akufo-Addo as somebody who upheld the rule of law, belief, and faith in democracy, but his conduct in the 2020 election is disappointing. There's nothing like forcing to stay. That's why people are dying, because you are imposing yourself.
Also tonight, the tussle for the leadership in the 8th Parliament is intensifying. The NDC is warning the MPP it will not be business as usual. We are also live from the NDC headquarters, where they are in deep talks right now, trying to agree on their own leadership. And top story is always brought to you by Gas and Cement, the nation builder. It's also brought to you by Belakwa Mineral Water. Tonight, the NDC minority is taking on President Akufo-Addo for his silence on the killing of at least 6 people in election-related violence. The president today delivered his final State of the Nation address, declaring he won a fair election in December. This is in spite of John Mahama's challenge at the Supreme Court. Well, the minority leader, Harun Idrisu, has been describing the president's speech today as unacceptable because of his silence on that particular subject. Well, the president today spoke for the first time on the outcome of the elections as it relates to the challenge that his own victory is currently receiving, with the petition filed at the Supreme Court, and addressing directly John Mahama's decision to resort to the courts instead of what he says have been pockets of violence.
I am thankful to the Ghanaian people and to the Almighty that I have been given a clear mandate to govern the country for 4 more years, and thereby given the opportunity to complete tasks, consolidate some of the far-reaching measures we have introduced, and initiate further changes and adjustments to policies and practices. And it is my firm and passionate view that I should only be president in a fairly conducted election, which I believe in all sincerity the election of 7th December was. I recognize that my main opponent in the election, the former President John Dramani Mahama, has gone to the Supreme Court to seek its intervention and grant reliefs that he believes were compromised in the conduct of the elections. It is good for the nation that in the end he chose the legal path instead of the pockets of violence that have attended the rejection of the results by his party in the period after the elections. We all have to make a deliberate decision to invest in the rule of law and uphold the integrity of the institutions of our state, so that no person or group of persons take the law into their own hands with impunity.
Well, there's been strong reaction from the minority side, led by the minority leader himself, who shortly after the president spoke today, expressed his disappointment with the president's posture when he spoke about the elections and its outcome.
I mean, for the first time in our history, arising out of collation of resource and declaration of resource, 8 lost lives, and he's silent on it. That is unacceptable. He must take responsibility. Those lives needn't be lost in a genuine, transparent, democratic process. He was dead silent on that. That's not acceptable. He must investigate it, punish people. They are interested in people who are processing and rioting.
The state institutions, they've argued, is doing it. The police are doing it. CID said they're looking into it.
They are doing what? So follow through. Those who shot and killed people are walking free. Is that the democracy you want? And then many of you in Ghana miss the point. You see, it's not about Techima South. It's about tomorrow. That in Tamale South, after resource, I just walk in and say, okay, Haruna Idrisu, 125,000, MPP 25,000, walk away. Ask the electoral officer, then I'm walking away. Is that the future of our democracy? So Techima South is to fight that systems must work, institutions must work, and they must work creditably and in accordance with law. Jean Mensah corrected herself 6 times. Did she go to court to correct herself? She used administrative processes and procedures. We simply ask for same. Use the same administrative processes and procedure to right your own wrongs Then she says go to court because she knows it's tortuous and cumbersome and outcomes may not be today when they would have secured some decisions that they are undeserving. So my disappointment in Dagbang, the president says he's created Dagbang. The Yanna's authority and mandate have been questioned in many instances, including Nantong and Karaga. So the absence of war is not peace. They shouldn't think that all is well.
When the president says that the 8th Parliament demands that you build consensus, you think he's being sincere?
He is compelled to. That is not his wish. It's what the Ghanaian people impose on him, and he must respect it. He didn't win parliament, nothing more. He should respect the principle and notion and practical operation of the doctrine of separation of powers. He's an executive president. He lost parliament. He lost it. He's just forcing to add Chima and to add Sepsi, as you saw, and it's disappointing. Then cost of living and quality of life is deteriorating in Ghana. Read the Statistical Service and the UNDP report in Ghana, and he talks about Ghana exporting food.
Well, that's Haruna Idrissa there. He is the minority leader in parliament. Well, the president also spent some time talking about what is about to unfold in the 8th parliament, with the way parliament is currently evenly poised, with both sides having equal numbers in the House. And he gave an indication of what he expects the House what he expects, how he expects the House to conduct its affairs, building bridges and reaching out to different methods of doing business in the House. The minority actually has a stronger reaction to that. But first, listen to the president.
Speaker, the next parliament is not going to be anything like this one that ends today. I do not suggest that the House might not be as busy, but the sitting arrangements, the source and decibel levels of sound from the House will certainly be different. The good people of Ghana have spoken and given Parliament an almost equal strength on both sides of the House. We have no choice but to work with the consequences of the desires of the people. The House would have to be more accommodating of each other's views and probably devise new ways of conducting its affairs in the interest of the good governance of our people.
So what is the minority's reaction to that? Well, according to Muntaka Mubarak, who is the minority's chief whip, the president makes the pronouncements, but he doesn't see the action to back that in terms of reaching out to their side to build a consensus going into the 8th parliament.
The people of Ghana had spoken. They want us to work together. A simple ask. The election had been over for the past 3 weeks. What has he done, or his government had done, to reach out to the other side?
You've not been reached out to.
I can tell you emphatically, the parties have not reached out, even those of us in parliament. Nobody is talking. I mean, you could see what the majority that tried to generate. Caucus is different from the party with the larger number in parliament. And when we talk about the majority, go and look at standing order 7, 6 and 7. It clearly says it, especially at 7. No party had majority. After caucuses, it's people wanting to work with you. If you go and look at the Constitution, Article 97, G and H, is very clear. When you, it's like CPP, if the gentleman was a CPP person, CPP at the national level can agree with MPP that, oh, we'll work together, and therefore he will join you. But in this case, for the independent candidate, the Constitution doesn't give him the opportunity to say that he's joining. He can only work with you. And in working with you, you cannot add that number to yours. You still stand at 137, and we've had that in Parliament, where you will see in caucus working, yeah, the person will vote with you, he may sit with you, he will work with you. The person can even change his mind along the line, all those things. So you cannot use that as a basis to say that, oh, I have this. That is why you must start the talking now, so that we avoid the unnecessary confrontation when we get there. But I want to believe the posture of the majority leader is that, oh, okay, we are preparing our fighting gloves. So the minority or the opposition into the 8th parliament will also just look for a gloves and start preparing for a fight.
I mean, stay with me because that's important. It is a consensus building.
Spoken. Because, I mean, like he's saying, the arrangement to usher the 8th parliament, there's a committee, for example, in parliament, putting the place, how to do the swearing in, how to do that. But asking whether there's any for how are we going to relate to each other in 8th parliament. There's none. And you could hear the posture of majority leader claiming, oh, they have majority. You heard him. So, and I'm saying that these are the comments that will not help us come around the same table. I can tell you, I spoke to Mr. Speaker, and I said, Mr. Speaker, yes, you are the Speaker of the 7th Parliament. I can assure you that I sit at almost every level of our party hierarchy. There's no any talking. That is not good for our country. Yes, I don't have this to talk about this, but I told him, and he said, Muchaka, I agree with you. I will reach out. I will try to tell the party hierarchy about it. Because I believe that once the presidency, because look, the presidency that we are talking about, the president and the former president and the people around them, we are friends. In Parliament, he and I mean, we will travel and we will chat like 10 hours, not getting exhaustive of having something to talk about. The party hierarchy, you've seen after 2012 when they went to court, Dr. Kobneje moved us to their party headquarters to talk. I'm saying that they are not doing the same. Meaning that they are just preparing themselves like, oh, you to hell with you. And I keep saying that this parliament, the 8th parliament, is going to be absolutely different.
So the president acknowledged today in the State of the Nation that the next parliament is not going to be business as usual, and the consensus will have to be the key word there. But you heard the minority reaction to that. They believe the MPP, although they say that they haven't reached out to build a consensus in the lead up to the 8th parliament. So will the party reach out and build a consensus? Listen to First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Sousu, who says to us today that he's actually also looking forward to being maintained as the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament in the 8th Parliament.
I don't know who is to reach out to whom. The president is still the president of the 7th Parliament. I mean, the previous one. He will be sworn in as the new president on 7 January. From that time, he will be a president under a new dispensation. In Parliament, the arrangement is the same. It is the 7th Parliament that is in session now. The 8th Parliament will start from 7th of January, or let's say, yes, 7th of January. Now, when it comes to consensus building, the Chief Whip knows that that is how Parliament has worked over the years. Even when the MPP had overwhelming majority, we knew that you cannot work without the minority. And that has always been our stance. So the difference is not in whether you're talking today or you talk tomorrow. The difference is in understanding that in Parliament, it has always been, even when we had to use appropriation, let's say, the word is eluding me. When you have to make sure you have 106, so you're entitled to 6, I'm entitled to 10. That 6 and 10 must be respected. So today, the only difference is that you may have 9 plus 1. It won't change the way we do our business. It has never been the case, at least in the 3 terms that I've been in Parliament, that one has ridden rough shoulder over the other. Never. And the Chief Whip will admit that. When we can't agree, then we decide to vote. Where we need a 2/3 majority and we can't agree, it doesn't happen. Like the case of the attempted amendment of the Constitution. We tried everything to reach consensus in the House. When we couldn't reach consensus in the House, I advised the President to withdraw it. Because without reaching consensus, there's no way we could garner 2/3 of the votes we needed to amend.
I think he's making a bigger point. Yeah. The president acknowledges that this 8th parliament that is about to sort of come into play, you need to build consensus. You need to reach unnecessarily. But he's saying that in the process leading up to the birth of the 8th parliament, there hasn't been any show of goodwill from the side of the president to engender, to nurture that into it at all. I mean, there has not. You have already gone ahead to say who your nominee is for speaker, you know, and there's already threats I've heard about if they also put forward a candidate, then you're gonna. That doesn't engender that.
The threat started from their side. Who should speak to whom? they started saying, we will form my majority. We will elect our speaker. We will elect the first deputy. I have also seen on social media a list of people supposed to be from their side. That is what you have seen. That is all. Everybody appears to be working with information they pick on social media.
But you have confirmed yesterday, officially, that you are putting forward names, proposed names.
Yeah.
When that was happened without any sort of, because in the end, it probably will have to come to a vote, and you need to build even around that. But you've already put out your choice, and there's no regard for what the minority says in that.
What does the minority say? They have also put out a name.
Well, that's Joe Osowusu there. He is the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament in this current Parliament as it stands now. Well, there's some breaking news coming from the NDC I want to bring to you now, and it relates to this same conversation that you just had there. Joe Osowusu hint at the end that they've also put out a name for Speaker. Well, I want to take you live now to the NDC headquarters, where there's been an emergency meeting on the key decisions in Parliament as it relates to the minority side, the NDC side. Parker Wilson was there and joins us on the telephone line right now. Parker, we understand that the party has agreed on a few names for the leadership of the House, but also understand even for the Speaker position.
That's correct, Evans. I've just ended functional executive committee meeting of the NDC. The party has agreed and settled on outgoing member of parliament for Nadoli Kalio and currently the second deputy speaker of parliament, Alban Babin, to be the next speaker of parliament on the side of the NDC. So that is the name they have agreed on or settled on and was submitted to the House for voting. And you know that the NPP had already issued threats that the NDC risked losing the second deputy speaker slot if indeed they file a nominee for the speaker position. Well, the party has called the bluff of the NPP and says that they are going ahead to submit the name of Alban Babin. And so that is what is going to happen. And again, if you look at the NDC conclave in Parliament, I mean the leadership, the party has maintained or retained the current leadership. So Haruna Idrisu will be the leader on the side of the NDC. And as we spoke to Muntaka Mubarak, his desire has been granted by the party. And so Honorable Muntaka Mubarak of Asomase will still maintain his position as the chief whip on the side of the NDC. If you go to Doyo Ganza and Ibrahim Ahmed, they will also deputize Muntaka Mubarak as deputy chief whips, respectively. And so that is the information that the NDC has communicated to me this evening, shortly after the functional executive committee meeting. And Evans, we are told that with the deputy chief whips, especially for Doyo Ganza, there's a possibility of reshuffling. The party says that after the election petition, which will be determined by the Supreme Court, she might be taken off and will be replaced by the MP for Clote Koli, Dr. Zaneto Rawlings. And so this is the information coming from the NDC that tonight, Alban Babin will be for the speaker slot going forward into the 8th Parliament. And they have also instructed their members in the House, I'm talking about the party instructing the NDC side in the House, to refer or describe themselves as the majority in the House. They claim that even though the NPP does not have any absolute control of Parliament going forward into the next Parliament or the 8th Parliament, they are describing themselves as the majority. And so they also have every right to describe themselves as the majority, even though they all occupy about 137 seats respectively. So this is the information coming from the NDC headquarters, Evans.
And if you're just joining us, that's a breaking news story coming from the NDC headquarters then, Parker. So let's, of course, the big headliner is the fact that the party has decided to also put forward a nominee for the position of Speaker which is Alban Bagbing. What that means, as we've heard all today, is that this is going to go down to a secret vote on tomorrow. This is tomorrow midnight, and we're also expecting, therefore, as the MPP has already threatened yesterday, that if this is what is going to play out, that they want to control the remainder of the slots when it comes to the first and second deputy speaker positions. In fact, there's a suggestion today when I spoke to the first deputy speaker of parliament, Joe Wise, that the second deputy speaker position, the minority, the MPP side, is actually pushing to give that position to the independent candidate. Because it will all come down to a vote. They will have to now vote for both speaker, vote for the first deputy speaker position, and then vote for the second deputy speaker position. And the minority position believe that with their numbers, they can win all those votes and deprive the NDC of any representation at that level. I mean, so that is the latest coming in on that. But Parker, let's go through the names of the minority leadership again, because did they confirm the deputy minority leader, as in Kluchi Aveji? Was he maintained?
Yes, it was maintained. In fact, the leadership, as I mentioned, remains unchanged, with the caveat that after the election petition, the second deputy chief whip, which is Madame Comfortdoyo Ganza, will be replaced by Dr. Zaneto Rollins. And so for the leadership, the top leadership, Haruna Idrisu, James Kluchi Aveji, including Muntaka Mubarak, will remain unchanged and will be the leadership of the NDC going into the 8th Parliament.
Parker, thank you very much. I want to quickly bring in the Executive Director of the Africa Parliamentary Center, Dr. Rashid Rahman, who joins us on the telephone line on this development that just breaking from the NDC headquarters. And of course, the conversation today from the State of the Nation address, the need to reach out, as the President himself acknowledged today, because of how evenly poised Parliament is. Dr. Rahman, thank you for your time here on Top Story. I know we had called you on the Sona, but this is just breaking. The minority side, the NDC side, is going ahead to also put forward a name for the speaker position. Your reaction to this?
Well, Evans, I am very, very worried when I hear, all the firing from both sides. And this has been going on for some weeks now. I don't know whether they haven't sat down really to think about the dangers that are ahead of us as a nation and the challenges that this 8th Parliament is likely to present to this country. Because, I said, in one of my interviews a few weeks ago, if I were to advise the two parties, I would say, look, the odds are stacked against the NDC when it comes to particularly the position of the speaker. So in the spirit of consensus and dialogue, why don't they sit down and agree? You take the speaker slot, and then we find a way of dealing with other leadership positions, for instance, the committee leadership and so on in the parliament. This is how you dialogue, this is how you build consensus. But the kind of posturing that we are hearing, and then we hear from our president, this is the second time I've heard that Ghanaians want them to work together. But what that means in real terms, I don't know, because from what I have heard from both sides, it looks like nobody is talking to each other.
Yeah, and the president touched on it today.
Yes,
but then when
I was in Parliament,
yes.
I was there. Mm-hmm. I heard him. But you see, he says we need to devise mechanisms and so on. I would have thought that, Evans, this is the time leading up to the birth of the 8th Parliament, as you said. We don't wait until we are in the crisis and then we start saying we want to build a consensus.
In fact, the minority say that he says that, but there has been no overtures to them at all. There's been absolutely no talking on the back of all that everybody knows is going to be a difficult next Parliament. No talking has begun.
Exactly, Evans, and this is very worrying, and that's why I'm saying I
But
don't
but,
know
but
whether
who
they
should but
have.
who should reach out to who? I guess is the key question.
Well,
Who should initiate this?
Evans, our president has a, well, I mean, if I may say, all of us look up to him in this country. If anything goes wrong in this country, the first person who is going to be called is the president. So I would have thought that whatever it is, yes, I know egos are at stake here. I mean, both parties are trying to dig in and so on and so forth. But I think the person who has the utmost responsibility of making sure that this dialogue, this consensus, and so on starts, I think is the president.
Is the president. So you
Because
expect
I have
that
heard,
he will make the
I have
moves?
heard, for instance, in the past, in previous elections, when, for instance, if you take the election between the current president and President Mills, what divided the two of them was, I think, about 40,000 votes or so.
Yeah, that's just in the runoff, the third
yes,
round of the
the complaints that we heard from the opposition at the time was that there was no effort from the presidency to reach out to them in order to build bridges, in order to find a way to work together and advance the cause of Ghana. Now we are in this, and we are seeing a repetition of that.
Yeah,
and
I mean, can you hold the line for me briefly, because that's a very important point I want to put to the a key member of the majority side, Andre Japan Mensah, who is MP for Sekendi, is a retained MP. Mr. Japan Mensah, what's your reaction to that? I mean, the Dr. Draman, I guess, believes, and the minority has said so too, that the president acknowledging today that the next parliament is going to be very precarious and that things must change, that he should be the one reaching out. Your reaction?
Well, let me say good evening to our cherished viewers. It seems to me that what I'm hearing people suggest is that working together means share power. I don't think so at all. Because working together does not under any circumstances mean power sharing. There's a clear decision that the people of Ghana have taken. They voted overwhelmingly for His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo. There's no doubt whatsoever about that fact. Now, they voted for 137 members of parliament for both the NDC and the MPP, and one independent candidate who has indicated quite clearly that he is going to work to the effect that he's going to sit with the NPP. That gives the NPP